When you have leadership in countries that has no vested interest in creating appropriate dialogue,
those solutions, in my opinion, lie with the leaders.
There could be potential for a people's movement that will rise up.
There is a lot of corruption, a lot of incompetence. For any change to happen, there has to be discomfort on the part of those who have the keys to make the change.
And you know, the clock is ticking. I mean, I think we're done. I think it's done. I think the globe's had enough of us. Okay, so today I'm really excited because I'm going to have a conversation all the way from Los Angeles to Cape Town, South Africa. And I'm going to speak with a very wonderful young man called Anele Mbane.
Wow, you are bad with people's names.
You are Anele Mbane, right? I just love saying it.
If you had to say it here in Xhosa, it would be Anele Mbane.
Okay, Anele Mbane. I could do that. I met Anele Mbane a few years ago when I was walking down the street in Cape Town, in central Cape Town, and I spotted a really sweet shirt shop. And because I like shirts and blouses, I went into this shirt shop, and there were beautiful, beautiful handmade shirts there. Something like the one I'm wearing. Not exactly, but as good as, right? As good as. Thank you. And Anele, you were the manager of that shop, were you not?
I was.
You were. And we got chatting, and then you were with your friend who was also working in the shop, and the two of you were just so fantastic. I'm just, don't worry, because I'm going to big you up now. Just stay calm.
Make me sound better than him. Make me sound better. Make me look good. Make me look good.
Okay, but you were both fabulous. And anyway, I was just like, wow, those two guys in the shop, they're really interesting, and the shop is fantastic. I really love this place. And went back again, and we had chats, didn't we? Over the counter, we had chats. I can't remember how this happened. It's going to sound a little strange, but I think I said to you, hey, could we go for a cup of coffee and just have a conversation? Right? Is that the way?
That's exactly how it happened.
Now, that was not an older woman pickup line for a younger man.
I first thought to myself, hey, because, I didn't know who you were at that time.
No, you didn't.
No, I had no idea. And the conversation just flowed, and it was just all natural, and we just had the same interests and everything. And boom, yeah.
That's right. It was a connection. I felt we had a connection, and I felt that we had similar interests. And I wanted to have conversations because, as you know, I have a real passion about South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I explained it to you, but I might have to explain it to. Will you just bear with me while I explain a little bit again my background with relation to the country where you were born and brought up and where you are right now. So a long, long time ago, I was a teenager. It was around 1970, and I was 16 years old. And I heard about apartheid in this country of South Africa. And it really disturbed me because I thought I actually couldn't believe that there could be a country where people were separated, but by law, into different color groups of skin. And I always thought, this is so ridiculous, but it's so weird. Like, what on earth? And then I looked into it a little bit, and one day, I'm going to tell you the little story. I think I told you before that I was a young musician, and I used to play in orchestras, and on a Saturday morning I would go and play. I played flute, and I used to practice like that. And one day, a white South African man came to my hometown in Aberdeen of Scotland. This is crazy. Came and he was scouting for young people that could potentially, they could go to South Africa, you won't believe this, and become music teachers. And this guy, he's actually walked down the street with me after the rehearsal, and he walked me to my bus stop, and he said to me, it's something I've never ever forgotten, because he had this unusual, you know, the South African accent is a bit different.
Was he an Afrikaans speaking?
Afrikaans. So I can't do it now, but I used to be able to copy it quite well. Anyway, so he said something like, if you come to South Africa, you can have a very good life. You can have your own house with a swimming pool and a maid, you know? And I was like, and I was so offended. I was just like, I will never go to South Africa. I will never, I hate this. This is a horrible thing. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And I always said, I'll never step foot in a country like that. And I never did. And about 1988, Dave Stewart and I, we had this group, Eurythmics, was very well known, still is. And we performed in a huge concert that was to celebrate Mandela's birthday in London, in a huge stadium, Wembley Stadium. I don't think you were born yet.
No.
No, you weren't. So we were part of this concert, and it was a fantastic event. It really was. And all these amazing bands and artists were playing, and it was Mandela's birthday. And of course, the song that everybody sang at that time, and everybody was like mixed race, white, brown, black, everybody was free Nelson Mandela, you know, that's anthem, free Nelson Mandela, so beautiful. And we were all so uplifted by it, and we all had the spirit of hope, and we all thought it has to happen. And we'd never even seen him, you know. And a few years later, he walks out of prison, and it's like I get goosebumps on my arms when I think about it, because you see, things can change. It's very important to know that horrible things happen in this world, unbelievably horrible things. And still, surprisingly, something happens. It's like a tipping point and things change. That gave us young people then, your age then, tremendous hope. The members of the anti-apartheid struggle, everything they fought for, people died for this. People were tortured, people lost their families, people lost their lives for this struggle against apartheid in South Africa. And they won in the end, they won, kind of. Because even after Truth and Reconciliation and all the things, and Mandela becomes president, never really fulfilled itself in a way that the vision of Rainbow Nation, you know?
Some of us are grateful, yes, that we're not living in the times of our parents. Some of us are disenchanted, you know, some of us are disillusioned, and we are not impressed with the status quo and with the current situation.
Neither should we be.
And then there are those who say that you are angry about the past that you didn't live in, that you didn't experience, you know? But okay, we still feel, you know, the effects of that past, even though we are not living in the exact same times. So I used to, if you remember during our conversations, I used to be very angry, you know? I was one of those who were fueled with discontent, you know, for the lack of justice and all this type of things.
Yes.
But
like me, because I was very angry.
You were.
I was angry.
We were both very
angry. And it's a righteous anger. I thought, you know, Truth and Reconciliation would be investing in the people, investing in the systems. And unfortunately, that money was siphoned off by criminal semi-criminal, I don't know how to describe, but it went to the wrong hands. And it happens all the time. It happens everywhere. It's not corruption. Political corruption is not only in South Africa, it's in every country. So, sometimes I thought it's getting a bit of a stigma here because it seems like, oh, South Africa is the worst. Well, probably kind of equal to a lot of other countries, and that's the thing that makes me crazy because, and I'll just riff for a bit, is that, this world, Anele, is a terrible place, honestly. I mean, when I think about it, when I was a little girl, with that innocence, like when you were a little boy or 3, we were born in different circumstances, but I was born in a working class community in Scotland. I mean, we didn't have so much, but it was fine, it was like, and you felt like life was good. And then as you grow up, especially when you become a teenager, you start to look around and you see injustice and the bad things that happen. There's a lot of bad things happen. And sometimes all the bad things that happen, you lose faith in humanity. You lose it. Yeah, you lose it. I've lost it often and often. And yet still I have this belief that, good things can happen and they really must happen. We have the potential to do it. I have to add to this because, and I told you this story, whether you remember or not. The first time I actually came to South Africa, 2004. Mandela, he only had a few years, of course, as president. He was an older statesman. And he started the 46664, which you remember, his HIV foundation. I came to South Africa at a point where the HIV pandemic had already decimated the lives of over 350,000 people. And I know because I was going through the country at the time, seeing funeral tents everywhere. Maybe you remember the striped funeral tents. It looked like as a circus had come to town. Actually, people were dying in these, there was a funeral service taking place. It was happening everywhere. And the coffin makers, the funeral directors were making a fortune. And it hurt so badly to think that the dream of this Rainbow Nation was now hit with this AIDS pandemic. And it was the cruelest thing. I saw it close up. I saw what happened. I saw child-headed households. I saw orphanages. I saw clinics where people were dying, and they could have been saved because with treatment, with life-saving treatment, you could get someone who looked like a skeleton back to life, and you probably saw it yourself. You could get them back to life in a matter of a few weeks. It was like, we used to call it the Lazarus effect. And so I became very passionate about my activism for HIV and AIDS. And that was another thing, like a bottleneck, that was where the people were prevented from getting treatment. And so not only have you gone through all the hardships of apartheid era, then all the poverty, and then you have the expectation of the Rainbow Nation, then you're hit with HIV, but nobody wants to talk about it because nobody wants to
have the stigma.
And so it looks like it's invisible and nobody has it, but thousands of people are dying. So there's all this craziness going on.
Of course, the solutions, in my opinion, lie with the leaders. Everything begins.
Always.
And that's the issue that I have.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that I have. And if you remember, it's like, because there's a reason why we have a government, right? It's like having a manager of a store, right? They need to create and facilitate an environment for a successful business venture, right? So same thing, the leaders of a country are supposed to facilitate an environment where the country thrives, and they're supposed to mediate and mitigate, all these type of things, right?
Yes.
But the issue that we have in South Africa, there is a lot of corruption, there is a lot of incompetence, and there's also a lack of care and empathy.
Correct.
So because
Correct.
you live lavishly and are in a comfortable situation,
Yeah.
you can make simple rules that can only be, observed by a minority, where the majority simply can't observe those rules.
So how do you think that people will sort of rise up? And I mean, at the moment we're having with Black Lives Matter, you've got this extraordinary kind of energy that's coming out on the streets, and it's despite COVID-19, all of that, you have like the rising voice, collective voice, demanding social justice. And I'm wondering, do you think in South Africa there could be potential for a people's movement that will rise up? And because it seems to me that there almost needs to be total disruption. And it's not that I'm saying I agree or I disagree, but there needs to be almost like terrible violence of some kind of rising up before you get into this crisis situation where the people simply say no.
Unfortunately, and that's the sad part, is that for any change to happen, there has to be destruction. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's easy, right? And again, like I said, like these things are so complex because I, for instance, will not or am not affected when there's an uprising or whatnot. It'll be easy for me to suggest that as the solution, But those who are sacrificed during that uprising,
right? It's
do
them.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very, very difficult because there has to be discomfort on the part of those who have the keys to make the change, because unfortunately people don't change unless they're forced to. Legislation only changes when it's forced to. Apartheid was here for 40 years, you know what I mean? It had to be forced. It's not because Apartheid didn't end because the ones who were orchestrating it suddenly had a change of heart, suddenly had an epiphany.
Not exactly.
Oh my God. Oh, this is bad, guys. All right. Yeah.
If only.
Unfortunately, that's not how things happen. Those who are orchestrating that need to be made uncomfortable for it to change. And in the same way, people only care about things once they are, inconvenienced by those things.
Seems to be, of course.
100%. So, for instance, as well with the Black Lives Matter movement, for it to gain the traction that it gained, a whole city had to be on fire.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
With that city being on fire, how many people lost their livelihood? How many people lost, their property? How many people? So it's like, that's the sad part about this world, is that things can only be taken seriously once there's massive chaos. Yes. So in essence, to answer your question, I don't know, right? I'm not a political scientist.
No, I know you don't.
Fortune teller. But I would hope, that humanity can just get to a space where things can just be solved with dialogue, honest dialogue, logical dialogue,
Always, because it must always get to the place of dialogue. There, building bridges of some kind. But when you have leadership in countries that has no vested interest in creating appropriate dialogue, doesn't happen, does it? It just doesn't happen.
And that's the issue here in SA, where, for instance, there will be a ban on cigarettes today with no appropriate, and we're told, okay, we're banning cigarettes because the COVID-19 attacks the respiratory system. So we don't want to, impair people's, respiratory systems. So no cigarettes, right? And then the next week, cigarettes are back on again. You know what I mean? And then the next week, oh no, they're out again.
Yeah, well, it's so confusing. Oh my God.
This week, this week we're banning alcohol. Next week it's on. Now it's banned again. So it's a krinkum krakum. It's a mess. It's chaotic. And that's the problem, is that there's no honesty. There's no consistency. And it's like everything is being done for financial gain. It's like we are just, the corruption is the biggest issue, is that there's no sincerity even in the decision making that it's done. It's like everything is just reactive, it's impulsive. It's people who do not necessarily have a future plan. They're just making decisions based on, I don't know.
And you know what? It seems to be everywhere. It's just everywhere like that. So this is we're in this kind of global crinkum crankum thing. and you know, I don't see the solutions. And you mentioned global warming, which really is the most important thing of all, because the sustainability of the planet affects every one of us at the end of the day. And you know, the clock is ticking. I mean, I think we're done. I think it's done. I think the globe's had enough of us. It's just a question of time. That's my own feeling, is that I don't think we can save it. I think we can maybe extend the time that we have on this planet. But when I hear, you know, did you read that the polar bear is now it's in danger of extinction? Before, then I read one time, like, oh, the giraffe is now in danger of extinction. Now, I know about the rhinoceros, I know about the elephant, I know about the animals. So the animals are all in danger of extinction. The human beings are in danger of extinction. That's when we're going to get, oh dear, we have a problem. Too late. End of story, right? Yeah. Oh, I hate to be so negative, but it's true.
You know, again, remember when we spoke, I think a couple of times back, or the last time we were talking about, you know, not descending into nihilism, you know?
Because I always said to you, nihilism, because I said to you, oh, I made a nice Mandela quote with you, hope over despair. You know that quote, right? Because I say it many times, like, hope over despair. And it's true. I mean, I love that. It's a kind of mantra, because I get so despairing. And then I go, hope over despair. I think about him. It's weird because, you know, I still, you know, there's a few people in my head that I kind of have this, like, they're a good example for me. So Mandela is a good example for me. We'll just leave it at that. We don't have to discuss whether he was a great man or not. But to me, you know, I think he was a great man. I think 27 years for the cause was a great thing. I think he was incredible. And when he came out with this simple mantra, hope over despair, that'll do me. Hope, just have some hope today. And all the things that you describe about people that are in situations and circumstances of desperate poverty, and they can't get access to the most basic fundamental things. It's so disgraceful. It shouldn't be. And, you know, I get my head out to that place. I'm thinking, trust me, here in my comfort and my resource, I'm thinking, what on earth? And the only thing I've been able to do is to donate. There's a fantastic charity. I'm going to give them a shout out called Ladles of Love. And they're charitable organizations feeding people in Cape Town, you know, just keeping people alive. And they're just amazing. They're doing it, you know, and it's made the communities, of the white communities, the ordinary kind of middle class white communities, get on board with that, which is what I always thought, that's what it needed to be, you know, that people actually get active and they work together.
You see, Annie, that is true and that is good, right?
But it's not the solution. It's just a band-aid.
You know, again, it's like, for me, right, those people must continue doing what they're doing. They shouldn't stop, right?
Yeah.
But here's what I find, you know, disheartening. It's like South Africans pay taxes, right? South Africans pay taxes. The government receives millions of rands on a monthly basis.
Yes.
You know? And yet, in 25 years, there are still people who live without running water, no sanitation. People are, you know what I mean? Of course, we'll always have the poor among us. I mean, it's also in the Bible. But
it's,
for me, I just feel like, you know,
it's the majority.
We shouldn't be relying on charity organizations to maintain people's livelihoods. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely 1000% agree with you. I mean, charity is a fine thing, but this is not the way that countries.
It's not the solution. It's not a sustainable model, and we should be empowering people. It shouldn't be about charity. It should be about empowering. It should be about development. It should be about investment. It should, you know. So, you know what I mean. So I'm okay. I'm grateful for charity organizations being there. But what I said
totally agree.
Is the fact that the government, you know, and then people will say, oh, so that's the issue right there, is that you're focusing your attention on the government. Government will never do anything for you. And that, for me, I feel like if we are electing you, okay, we elect you, we put you in a position, you don't have a normal 9 to 5 like me. Your housing is paid for, your healthcare is paid for, your kids are sorted. Your job is to just do your job. If you're the Minister of Health, I mean, my dude, Minister the Health, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I so do.
That's your job. If you're the Minister of Safety and Security, just do your job and just do it properly and just do it. But the issue is that people are not doing their jobs. People are making promises which they're not keeping. You can't expect me, as an individual, right, who is living paycheck to paycheck, who is trying to find my way in the world, right, to also at the same time be concerned about the state of the nation, the powers with the people. It's true, the powers with the people, but dude, come on, dude, I'm sick and tired of that message, to be honest with you. The people don't want this. So where is the power of the people? The people don't want the conditions that they're living in. You understand? So it's like the only power that the people have is a destructive power, because the people must destroy in order for them to be heard, And then when the people destroy in order to be heard, the people are then punished for it. The people are again the problem. You know what I mean? So it's a bit of a weird situation. So you have people.
You remind me now why I love to talk to you. This is part of the thing, because I know we have to kind of. I want to talk to you all day. I'm so happy talking to you because we really touch on all the complexities, and that's the thing, is that you have an experience of a situation, and so do I, from a different perspective, obviously, for a different generation, from a different standpoint, but we absolutely agree inherently on the complexity of it all.
Yeah.
But we desperately both want to see the transformation,
100%.
So it makes me, you see, that's the thing, when I know how complex it is, and yet I think, but it's not so complex, really. If someone just had the will to sort it out, things could start to change. They could.
You see, Annie, it needn't be complex. What makes it complex is malevolence.
That's right. Yes.
That's what makes it complex, is that there are industries that benefit and thrive from chaos. And as long as that's the case, chaos will always be a part of our lives, because you must remember that apartheid was not a mistake. It was orchestrated.
Absolutely.
And those who orchestrated it maintained it intentionally. It was not a mistake. So it was a system where we had the majority suffering for the benefit of the minority.
That's right.
And unfortunately, the same DNA is prevalent throughout the world. And it is prevalent in South Africa today, where the majority will always suffer for the benefit of the few. And as long as that's the case, after apartheid, like for instance, look at America. There was the slave trade. After slavery, there was Jim Crow. After that, there was mass incarceration, the crack epidemic. After that, the 3 strikes and you're out. So there's always something that comes after. Do you know what I mean? There'll always be something else. Do you know what I mean? That will always just create disparity, And same thing, there will be AIDS today. The next thing, there will be Corona. The next thing, there will be H1. There was Ebola. There's always something. And there's always mismanagement of resources. There's always lack of empathy. There's just always nonsense, going around, things that make no sense.
It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. What do you...
So what do you do? What do you do, right, in a world like this? Because here's a simple example. Not so long ago, before there was the Black Lives Movement, which gained a lot of traction, there was the feminism movement,
It's 5 minutes. We had #MeToo 5 minutes of that, fantastic. I am an ardent supporter of women and girls.
Do you know what I mean? So the issue now is that there's traction, there's hype around the topic, there's awareness, but
then,
after all of that, right? There is no sustainable solution, right?
Correct.
What happens then is that we jump on to the next wave.
Next thing.
So it's the consumer culture, it's the instant gratification situation, it's the next phase, the next hype thing, the next, you know.
And the media,
again, there's that.
drives that.
You know what I mean? So it's a bit difficult. There's just so much being thrown, you know, to our senses right now that we touch, let go, touch, let go, touch, let go, touch, let go, touch, let go. You know, there was gender-based violence right now, which was a serious issue, and it actually increased with the lockdown. You know, because now people are at home, forced to be in each other's faces in a time of frustration. So gender-based violence spiked. You know, but it's like, instead of being concerned about that, we are busy talking about why is alcohol banned? Why are cigarettes banned? That's the topic of discussion. We've moved on from that. We've moved on from the rape culture and the rape incident.
So it's like next.
So that's the issue, and it's like I don't know. You know, there was a time where there was a whole vibe about the Illuminati, right? New World Order, and you know, the few men that run this world type of vibe, right? And it's like, it seems like this is orchestrated. It seems like it's intentional to me.
Absolutely.
Because some things simply make no sense to me, right? When I think about them, when I talk about them, they just infuriate you, you know? And you as an individual, you become psychotic. You lose your mind.
That's right.
So
you have to
literally...
It's true. I know this feeling, and almost psychotic.
You lose your mind. You lose your mind.
You're trying to figure it out.
100%. So what has helped me, right, and why I've become, you know, a bit more calm now than I used to be.
I really want you to tell me.
And why I don't really just focus on one perspective is because I've now come to realize the complexity of the situation, right? So it may lead to complacency, you know, where you are just like, you know what, screw it, you know, let it all burn. But what has helped me and what has oriented me was reading this guy's book that I think I told you about, Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist.
Say this again, I'm
and
sorry.
He talked, so basically what Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, cool.
So there are some things, of course, that, you know, because each and every single person is a human being. They have pros and cons, good and bad, right? So we just extract what we need from them. You know what I mean? Like, people have negative things to say about Nelson Mandela, which is fine, but there are good things about him, you know, that's just like what else. So same thing goes for Jordan, right? So one of the things that I took from him was individual responsibility, right? Assuming individual responsibility and gaining,
I remember
100%, right? And gaining control over the things that you actually have control over.
Control.
Do you know what I mean? So you start with yourself, you improve yourself, you sort yourself out. Because here's the thing, you expect the world to do what it should, right? Which is the right thing to do. But even you don't even do what you should. You don't even do the things that you know you should be doing. Do you know what I mean? For your benefit, for the benefit of those around you. You know what I mean? You don't even do that. And yet you expect the world to do that collectively. Right. So he touches base on those things where it's like, there are things that are out of your control. And if you're going to spend your time focusing on those things, you will end up being nihilistic. You will end up being pessimistic. You will end up being complacent. You will be suicidal. Do you know what I mean? Because your focus is just so great that you have no power over it. So you feel powerless, you know? But if you take a bit of time to straighten yourself out, get yourself in a position where when you speak, your voice is heard, where you build influence, where, you know what I mean? Then you can actually influence things. Then you can exert the change. So first, be the change that you want to see.
Be the change. You be the change you need to see.
Do you know what I mean?
So cool. Yes.
For me, if it was up to me, I'm such an anarchist. I would burn down the parliament, right? I would burn down SARS. I'll burn down all the institutions where the leaders
just
are.
For the record, you're not going to be doing that.
No, I won't be, right? So that's what I would want to do, you know.
Yeah.
But
I love it. I love what you just said.
Because I don't want to do that.
This is very cool because we need to kind of round up our conversation.
100%. So now it's a thing of.
But can we round it on this beautiful note? Because I think what you've just said is extremely powerful, you know, that you see yourself as a person with influence, but you must first sort yourself out, and then
100%,
then you can influence change around you. And I mean, to me, this is so elegant, this is so noble. It's taking responsibility for oneself and doing what you can within your own capacity. It's a beautiful attitude, and I know because you embody that to me. I've seen it in you, and please don't be embarrassed because I'm going to, again, it's not flattery, but I know that you have this quality, and I love this about you. You have a very, to me, when in your company, I feel inspired, and I always have done. All our conversations have been just brilliant. And that's why I wanted to talk to you on Instagram TV. Because
Merci beaucoup. What can I say?
Just be your good self. Be your good self. Be your wonderful self. You shine, Anele. You do.
It's always the same with you as well, dude. It's just always nice vibes. Just always super dope chats. Good. And you know, to be able to speak with someone who's open-minded, to speak with someone who is
right.
How can I say? It's you know, being open-minded, but also being willing to engage. You know, being willing to talk about the complexity, being willing to dive into the negativity without necessarily being negative yourself.
Yeah, we don't have to clash or anything.
100%.
But we kind of agree, and mainly we agree.
Mainly we agree, and
yeah, we do agree.
But that's what keeps the conversations going, because at least, you know, there's some elements of, you know, where the combos communicate.
Totally.
You know? And even when they don't communicate, we're able to say that, you know, I feel this way about it, and you say, I feel this way about it. And we engage, you know, and we gain perspective, you know. Correct. And that's what I always appreciate, because I find that the biggest issue that we have right now, and why things cannot get better, it's until people can actually sit down and have honest dialogue. That's where we can agree to disagree and yet agree on working together to make things better. Because at the end of the day, regardless of where you come from, what you believe in, at the end of the day, you're human, and the person right next to you is also human. So you feel pain, they feel pain. You feel hunger, they feel hunger. You want the comforts, they want the comforts. But the issue is that we want to gain at the expense of the next person, and that's the problem. You know, until we can get to a space where gaining is not the problem. The issue is gaining at the expense of, at the detriment of the next person.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to jump in. I hope that was not a COVID cough, was it?
It was.
That was really, that's my humor. I'm sorry.
You got me worried. You got me worried then.
You know, you got to laugh, haven't you? Jeez. Enjoy your rooibos tea. Anele, I have had, it's so nice, genuinely, to see your face. I hope one day we'll meet again in a coffee shop, and we won't have masks on, and we won't have to worry about COVID-19, and things will be better. But in the meantime, let's go through our lives in the best way possible. You do your beautiful thing, and one moment, one day at a time, one breath at a time. Much love to you, Anele. Thank you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure chatting with you. But we'll speak again. Yeah. The conversation, I'm sure, will continue. It will end here. But we'll continue as we always do.
As we do.
Take care, Annie. Thanks so much.
Bye, my dear.
Ciao.
Much love
all
to you.
The best. All the best.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Love you, Anele.